While we wait for a few latecomers, welcome to today's webinar, which is balancing your website's impact and sustainability. So we're looking not just at website sustainability, but how we balance those considerations when we think about what kind of impact our website needs. For those of you who've been to these webinars before, welcome back and thank you for rejoining us. If this is your first webinar and you don't know who HDK are, we're a marketing agency. We specialize in building websites and managing websites. We've been doing that for 20 odd years. We also have a marketing service as well. So if you were at the AMA recently, you might have seen Bella and Fizz there as well. So those are the things we do. We help particularly clients in the arts, culture, and heritage sector. And we spend a lot of time helping organizations balance audience needs with the reality of running and maintaining successful websites. Increasingly, that includes conversations around sustainability, accessibility, performance, and how digital choices can support your wider organizational goals. And today's session is about sharing some of that thinking, those questions, the practical approaches that we're seeing to emerging across the sector, and exploring how small changes can make a big difference. So, speakers today, my name is Hans. I'm director and founder at HDK. Also joining me is Ejay. She's one of our project managers and she was at the webinar 2 months ago. And joining us for his first HDK webinar is Joseph. He's our new web support developer, but he has many years of experience with websites as well. So we'll be bringing all of that experience into today's session. And these are what we're going to cover. I'm going to start off talking about the relationship between web and sustainability. Ejay is going to explore what makes a sustainable website, some considerations, things that you can do yourself. We're going to touch on balancing competing priorities. And then Joseph is going to take you through a practical exercise that we've done to try and demonstrate some of these skills. And then hopefully there will be time for questions and discussions at the end after a little bit of housekeeping. So, web and sustainability. And I am going to start off with a poll to get to understand where you are, to benchmark where the people are. And we've got nearly 100 people in the room today, so it'll be interesting to see. So this first one, let me see if I can get it up on the screen. Right, that is carbon footprint. Launch the web poll. So I've got a question here called carbon footprint for your website, and you're already answering the question, but how many of you know your carbon footprint of your website? So we actively measure sustainability across the organization. We've got sustainability is important, but we don't currently measure website impact. We've never considered website environmental impact, and I'm not sure. So we're getting results in. We've got about 50 of you. We've got to get it going for a little bit longer to get a few more results in. And then I'll share the results. I think it's slowing down now, so probably all of you are going to have completed it. So I'm going to end the poll and share the results. And what do we have here? So interestingly, most of you who completed, 40% of you said sustainability is important, but we don't currently measure website impact. And then the next, actually a good 20% of you, 13 of you, out of 65, we actively measure sustainability across the organization. We never consider our website's environmental impact, gets 17%. And then 23% say, I'm not sure. So thank you very much for sharing that. I think it's just useful to benchmark amongst ourselves where we are with considering the carbon footprint of our website. So I'm going to stop sharing that now. You might have to close it from your screen. Okay. So I think the point here is that every visit to your website is using energy. And if you think about what's going on, it probably starts off with where your website is being hosted. And your website is a series of files that sit on a server, like a computer, like your computer at home. And of course, that has to be on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that has to be supplied by energy just to make that run. so that anyone can access it. Then you've got that information transferring across the web until it gets to a visitor. So it's going from one server to another server that's being passed along until it gets to the device that's looking at it. So you've got that part of the journey. And then finally, your device that you're looking at the website on, that's maybe a handheld device, it's a computer plugged into the power, it's running from battery, it's on your watch, whatever. All of those we're considering when we're thinking about the energy that we're using for a website. So imagine that you've got a small website, maybe it's a really simple website and you have one visitor. That's sort of using a little bit of energy. It's insignificant, perhaps. It's hardly worth mentioning. It's hard to measure. It's so small. But then imagine that you've got, say, 100 visitors looking at that website. Of course, that's going to grow until you've got thousands of visitors. You're a really popular website. You're selling lots of tickets. And then you have, just imagine the impact that that has on every small little decision that you're going to make on your website. So quick instinctive poll here again. This time, go back to that. What do you think is, what contributes most to your website's environmental impact? So we've got hosting there, we've got images, we've got videos, there's user traffic. I showed you the slides of one person to thousands of people. We've got design features. What do we think is making the most impact in terms of the environmental impact on our websites? And again, just an instinctive response there. I'm going to stop there. Oh, no, just a few more responses now. Stop coming in. I'm going to close it. 3, 2, 1, and I'm going to share the results. Interestingly, video, maybe not surprisingly, is the instinctive response there. Hosting is probably the second most significant one. So I'm going to stop sharing that, close that screen. Stop sharing. So my answer to that is it depends. And I didn't want you to feel tricked there, but there isn't a right answer. It could be because every website is different, and we'll explore why that might be. Here are 3 examples maybe to illustrate the point. The first one might be a venue website, a theatre website. It has a large hero video on the homepage that's maybe a selection of the celebrities that are in your next season, helping you to get excitement around your season and selling tickets, but it only has a small audience. You only have a small audience coming to those websites, that website. Or compare that perhaps with a gallery website where they have maybe a medium-sized audience, but they have thousands of high-resolution images. Maybe it's part of an education program to have that quality up there so that people can really study close on the images. And then compare with the third example, it's a festival website. It has thousands and thousands of visitors, but the page is really simple. All of those have an impact in different way. And that's maybe something to have in mind when we're going through some of the examples and the choices that we talk about later on. So small decisions can add up when repeated thousands of times. So think back to that video. That video might be really important. It can have impact, but it's really important to that selling that season. Every image you have, so it might be a small decision to have a high-res image, but if you've got thousands of them, that's going to add up on your website. And then of course, a simple website, you might think it doesn't have much impact, but if you've got thousands of people, it's all going to multiply. And those are the things that we want to be considering when we're making our decisions about what to have on the website. So instead of asking what's the biggest problem, the question might be, ask where can we make the biggest improvement?
Thank you, Hans. like how Hans just described, that there is no single big mistake. It's lots of little things adding up when it comes to making a website sustainable. So in the next slides, I'm going to share 4 changes that you can make, starting with the ones that you can start implementing this week. These are optimizing content, reviewing outdated codes, keeping your software updated, and deleting old staging sites. And I will explain what they mean and how we can implement them in the next slides. So first one is optimizing content. When we talk about content, we mainly talk about the images, because most websites are carrying way more image weight than they need to. They have files that were never compressed, images size bigger than they are displayed, old posts that had no engagement in years, and a media library with like lots of outdated files. But the good thing is all these changes can be done easily and without the support of a developer. And in the next slide, let's see what can happen when we compress images. Images usually make up to 60 to 70% of a page's total weight, and compressing them is quite easy. You can just use modern formats like WebP and convert them to WebP format, and it will cut file size by up to 70% without anyone noticing a difference in quality, really. And when this is added up across every page of your website, that can mean up to 4 times less carbon cumulatively. And it's also really easy to implement, around 2 hours of work, depending on the size of your website, but requires low maintenance, and is most likely the highest leverage thing on this list.
Ece, WebP, many people might know that images, I'm used to images, are JPEGs and GIFs and things. So is WebP just an alternative format to one of those sort of formats?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I think it's a newer format as opposed to JPEG and PNG, but it reduces the size significantly without losing really difference in quality.
Right, thank you.
Next one we have is reviewing outdated code. This is about the things that are running in the background that we are not using anymore. The plugins that we have on our websites are like the apps on our phones. So even when you don't use some of the apps on your phone, they still add weight and carry weight and slow your phone down. Same with tracking scripts. A huge number of sites still running pixels, like marketing pixels from ad campaigns that ended like years ago, because we don't remember switching them off. But the good thing is, again, this is an easy fix, and it's just a few more housekeeping tasks to add to your list.
And that is again, that's something like Google Tag Manager, and the tags that you put in there, and it's like, so anyone can do this. It doesn't have to be a web developer. If you've got access to Google Tag Manager, you can just...
Yeah, definitely. It's like Facebook pixels, for example. Anyone can do that. You don't need a developer to help you with that. It's really fairly easy. Third-party tracking scripts added up across the whole web are estimated to generate around 11 million tons of CO2 equivalent a year. This is comparable to like daily things like meat production, transportation, or like crypto mining. One old Facebook pixel isn't causing that in its own, but thousands of small forgetting scripts across millions of sites all over the world adding up to this number. And this is another fix you can do this week, and it's again easy to implement and maintain, and without the need of a developer. Our third change that you can do to make your site more sustainable is keeping your software updated. This one is a bit more technical. It's about keeping your software updated, and this one will probably need developer support. But what do we mean by keeping software updated is PHP is the language most websites in the world that they run on. think of it as your operating system on your phone. It's like how when you get a notification on your phone, it says there's a new version of macOS, it will be installed tonight. It's kind of the same thing for your website. If it's out of date, it needs more computing power, a bit like running an old phone on an old operating system. So the difference is when it's on your phone, it's just like a one-click job. But if it's on your website, it's a developer task. So you probably won't do this yourself, but you can ask your host or developer. There are still estimated 14 million websites running an outdated version of PHP, the language that we just talked about, and upgrading to a current version can cut the compute power needed by around 50%. This is harder to implement than the first two, but it's a great one to raise with your developers or whoever manages your hosting so that you can make your website more sustainable.
We at HDK, for example, we have a system where clients on our support packages, we check it every week automatically, so any updates can happen automatically, and so they're always being updated. We're always keeping up. So it maybe, you know, talk to your developer to see if they've got similar programs like that, so that it's and that's it's not only good for the environment, but it's also good efficiency for the website in general, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think keeping software updated, also plugins updated, because things improve and you need to keep up to date with everything. And if you don't update, then you are falling behind, not just making your website less sustainable, but also probably putting it in a more risk of having issues down the line. So it's always good to have that and, you know, maintain the website and keep software updated. And the last one we have is deleting all staging sites. This one may sound a bit cryptic if you haven't heard the term staging site, but in reality, it's very straightforward. So what do we mean by staging sites for the people who haven't heard the term? A staging site is basically a private test copy of your website. It is used to try out changes before they go live on your main website. And for some websites, you would also have a development site on top of the staging site. So you would first implement your changes and updates on a development site, and then push them to your staging site and make sure everything is running perfectly fine until then you can push your changes, or you can apply the changes to go live. This is totally normal to have like one staging site or both staging and development site. The problem is nobody ever deletes them after the use. We went through our own systems recently and found and removed around 1,000 gigabytes of old development sites that we don't use anymore. So it's definitely worth asking your host or your developer for a list of what's actually still live versus what's left and can be removed, so you can make up more space.
And I guess there's a lot of people here, and some people have different website setups. So this is more aimed at the ones who are working with web developers rather than the ones who might have their own Squarespace site or online WordPress site where you don't really have staging sites. It's more for those ones who've got the sort of the bigger, more established websites, I would have thought. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, that's usually right, because I think more on the Squarespace sites that you can, I think, preview changes easily, and they're maybe smaller as opposed to WordPress sites that we are usually building. So in our case, we definitely have staging sites and sometimes even development sites, and that's why I think this check is quite needed, because when you are done with the development site, then you don't really need to keep it anymore.
Yeah, so not necessarily applies to everyone here, but it does apply.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, get it.
Thank you. Yeah. And before finishing off, I just want to do a quick poll. Now that we've been through these 4 different changes, which one do you think you would tackle first out of these 4 changes?
So this is not a right answer. This is, again, a benchmarking for people in the room today to see what sort of things you might want to tackle, or that you feel that you can tackle.
Yeah, and also I think everyone's website is as Hans mentioned, it's different. There's different needs, so there's no right answer.
Okay, I think we've come to the end. I'm going to end the poll there and share the results.
Unoptimized images. Yes, as we've discussed, I think unoptimized images, like they all add things, but I think unoptimized images are typically the quickest and highest impact fix. So it's good to see that.
Right, thank you. Okay, so in terms of, it's important to think about, we've talked about some strategies that you can do to try and reduce the or improve sustainability through your website. I think that the theme of today, though, is more than just that. It's about balancing the impact across different priorities, for example. And to illustrate that, I'm just going to have 4 talking points, the 3 of us are going to have a conversation and see what comes out of that. So I guess the first scenario is, and these are things that I've heard people say in the past, clients say, or talk to at conferences. These are the sort of things that have come up in conversation. And the first one is this idea that maybe green hosting solves everything. So at HDK, we've been hosting websites for well over 12 years, I think, 12 to 15 years on servers that are 100% powered by renewable energy. And when you think about the traffic that's generated, that's coming from all our clients' websites, the features that our clients have, the selling tickets, those sorts of things for high volume ticket sales, all of that being on renewable energy is going to make a big difference. Is that the biggest thing that we can do? Is that the most important thing that we can do?
I think it's definitely a big step. From the research that I've done as part of this process, certainly it seems to contribute to about 30% of the scoring that's provided on a website's sustainability, is whether it's using green hosting or not. But I think using green hostings only, there's still more things to consider, such as if you're still loading really big images or also playing video when people might not be watching it, that's still going to contribute to the score. So it's not the final answer.
It's interesting that you think from your research, 30% it can have that much impact. I think it feels like that's one of those things you could probably, once you've done it and you can forget about it, and it's contributing all the time in the background. So finding a green host or checking with your developer that they're using green hosting, I think is definitely something that sounds worthwhile doing. But from what you're saying, it's like, I guess it's like doing loft insulation in your roof and leaving your lights on all the time, for example. There's still more work to be done, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely.
How about the idea that the most sustainable website is the simplest website?
I think, yeah, simplest website is definitely, could be more sustainable maybe in terms of when we look at it first. But I think if we think about like art organizations having a really simple plain website, should be the way, I would probably say no, because like a theater or gallery or museum, they need to make an impact, they need to inspire people. This could be through videos or photography, and if a site drives like donations, ticket sales and engagement, it can create like a enormous impact on people. So I think it's like how we discussed before. I think we need to consider why we have the images for, and if they are there for a purpose.
Yeah, I get it. So again, we're most of the people here are working in arts, culture, heritage. What we do is important. We are influencing people. We're giving people quality of life and experiences, and so what we do on our websites has a purpose, and we want to make sure that those are looked after. Next one. Interesting. Accessibility versus sustainability? Do they compete? What are they different? Do we have to do different things for them? Accessibility is really important. It's, you know, something that I've always considered from the earliest websites. Sustainability is probably something that's been sort of a more conscious people, or the sector has been more conscious of in the last few years, probably since lockdown. Are they competing with each other?
We've actually found that they almost tie in together by you know, having optimized content, faster pages, simpler layouts. Having your images better optimized seems to often improve accessibility rather than compete against it.
So it's,
yeah, and
sorry, carry on.
I was just going to add to like Joseph's point that, and I think they also work, accessible websites or sustainable websites, they also work better on mostly so accessible websites in like slower connections or like older devices, and they also come up in high ranking in like Google search as well. So I think they definitely go hand in hand.
So that sounds like a win-win situation. You can serve both accessibility and sustainability, and it feels like there's a lot of crossover in the strategies and the tactics that we take to fulfill those. Great. And then the last one, if we're trying to be sustainable on our website, removing those features, removing the carousels, removing the hero videos is the way to go.
I think this is similar to what we've been talking about, like arts organizations having simple websites. I think it's, again, we just need to ask ourselves when we add an image or a video to our websites, like, do we really need it there? Does it serve a purpose? Does it achieve something valuable? If the answer is yes, and if it's making an impact, if we are inspiring people through that, then we can. It doesn't mean that we need to remove those extra features.
Yeah, a website that sells tickets still has to sell tickets, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a great way, Nick. Great, thank you. So there's just a discussion around how we maybe want to balance the priorities of our websites with sustainability. It seems that web design isn't about chasing the lowest possible carbon score. It's about making thoughtful decisions. Every image, every plugin, every video, every feature, it all needs to have a purpose. And if it supports your audiences and your organization's goals, then the question is, how do we deliver it in the most efficient and responsible way possible? And Joseph, you're going to help us see how we can do this in practice, perhaps.
Indeed, yes. So the HTK website was rebranded this year as part of a wider rebrand, and that brought a new website. So as part of our process here, we looked at how sustainable our website is and ways that we could improve it, and we've come up with some really great results. But the first hurdle was really about how we even know how sustainable or unsustainable our website is. So we found a couple of services online. We'll provide links to them later. The one we chose to go with was called EcoGrader. And we chose this one because it gives you really easy and good suggestions, but you can also keep getting it to scan the website. Whereas other sites such as Beacon or Website Carbon either maybe provided a little bit too technical of information, or it didn't update frequently enough. It didn't go back and rescan the website after every change. What we've been able to do is take our website from a score of 55 on Beacon. It originally took around 2.5 seconds for our website to load. And over, let's say we had 10,000 monthly visits to our website. I'm not sure we're that popular, but if we did, then that would contribute. It would take about one tree a year to reabsorb that carbon emission, which is created from downloading the content. Alternatively, an electric car journey from London to Manchester.
That's where you're from, isn't it, Joseph? So
It is, yes, yes. So we started off, and this is going to tie in with some of Jay's suggestions earlier. We started off converting and compressing images, but we're also going to chat about leveraging other solutions such as caching, looking at the way that we handle the interactive parts of the website, like scripts, and only loading images when they're actually just about to be viewed on the screen rather than loading them all at once.
Are you going to explain what caching means for those?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so we'll go on.
Yeah. So we've already touched on it. Converting images and compressing them to a more web-friendly format, WebP, actually was the biggest result that we got. It took our loading time down by probably around 50%, and it gave us a really noticeable change on our EcoGrader score. It took a little bit more time, but it's actually really easy to implement because you can use other softwares that plugins which basically scan through the whole website and go through each one and compress them for you.
Does that happen? We build websites mainly in WordPress. Is that something that happens as a plugin in WordPress, or is it something that happens when people are making their saving their images on their computers, for example, before they upload?
You can do it two ways. So we use the WordPress plugin, and it will now, for all future uploads as well, it'll go through and it'll scan it and compress it and resize it, so that it's continuous and it's automated. It's possible to do that on your own device if you've got like an image editing software, but it's a bit more technical to do that. I think it involves, of course, choosing settings and things like that.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the software that I sometimes use to create an image, and it says save as at the end, and you can save it as an image or a GIF. Would it be there maybe, but if they have an option for WebP?
So WebP is a little bit more niche, to be honest. The more professional softwares will likely have an option for that, but more consumer options will probably stick to JPEG and things like that. It's more widely known for most people. The next thing we looked at was caching, which is basically saving parts of the website which don't often change, so that they basically every time someone visits the website, they've got fragments of that website stored locally, so they don't have to keep downloading it. It's possible for us to do that. Browsers are compatible, so you basically just tell the browser, save this bit of code here and you can use it next time. Caching contributed about a quarter to our overall loading time, which is quite significant, and it is one of the other most noticeable gains that we saw from optimizing the website. The next two options didn't provide much of a difference in terms of the website's loading times, but they did help give us a slight push towards a better score and carbon offsetting. So we looked at the interactive parts of the website, such as the carousel of images which scroll across of our clients' logos. And that's lower down on the page. A lot of people, probably around 30% on average, go to our website and then click straight off it. So we considered whether it's necessary for us to even load the bit of code that has that interactive carousel. We came to the conclusion that until someone's interacted with the website, so unless they've scrolling down on the page or something like that, or clicked a button, there's no point even trying to download it to someone's device. So it gave us a little bit of a boost there.
Sorry, what's minify?
So minifying is basically when we code a website, we kind of structure the code in a way that is a little bit easier to read. It's nice and pretty, so that we can, go in and make updates. But those extra lines and spacing and things that is like, formatting a Word document, it creates extra, it uses up extra storage space. So when so we have a version that's pretty, and then we have a version that's minified, and it just takes up less storage space. It means it can download over the internet quicker.
So it's something I'm imagining it, and I think I've seen it. Is so you lay out a Word document for humans to read in an accessible way. When it sounds like when you minify, you lose all those gaps. So a human necessarily would find it confusing, but a computer doesn't need all those gaps. It can just process it. Got it. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, exactly that. Yeah. A little bit like maybe converting an Excel spreadsheet to a CSV as well, for example. All of the formatting completely strips out. But it's not, like you say, it's not necessary for the computer to have all of that extra data. And finally, we looked at, similarly to our interactive elements, we also have lots of really high resolution images on our website, across the website, because we really like to showcase our beautiful websites that we've created. So but again, when someone loads the website, they don't necessarily need all 100 photos straight away. So we optimize the website by only loading the images that the user is about to see as they scroll down the page. And that way we can do it one by one as and when they're needed, instead of all right at the start. In total, that brought us to a score of 93, which from a red 44 felt a lot better. It now takes less than a second to load our website. It's cleaner than 73% of all websites globally. And 10,000 website views over a year now only contributes to about a round trip from London to Luton, rather than one trip from London to Manchester.
I think I'd rather go to Manchester. No offense to Luton. Yeah, I get the point there. Thank you, Joseph.
Certainly not as far. And the final thing I just wanted to touch on was how this might have affected our search engine rankings as well, because this actually all ties together. And we can see from our Google Search Console results here that Google certainly seems much happier with this. And that's as a result of optimizing our images and other things. It reduces the bounce rate, the rate that someone leaves the site because they get bored of waiting for things to load. And also, because it's a more efficient website, Google thinks that it's better to serve that to its visitors. So we're likely to see some search engine gains there as a result of making our website more carbon efficient.
Brilliant, thank you. So there's some good strategies there. Some of those are things that anyone can implement and start thinking about. Others are ones you might want to talk to a developer about or an expert for. But what's great to see is that, and one of the themes here is that trying to make your website sustainably has more wider benefits, and it's great to see that SEO is one of those, that accessibility is one of those, that these are, it's worthwhile thinking about this and doing it. Also, this idea that it's not just a bit like accessibility, where it's not a black and white journey that you go on or a solution that you find. It feels like it's the same with making your websites more sustainable, that it's more nuanced than that. You have to think about you have to balance priorities as well. So hopefully that's giving you some things to think about. Just looking at the chat, and Pip asked a question. Would love to know how to defer carousel images to only show them to people who have interacted. Where can I find out about that? And Pip is using Squarespace on that one. I suspect that that's something that, because we're not Squarespace specialists ourselves, it might be something that we come back to you on, Pip, either in the email that we send out this afternoon, or or come back to you directly on. Anything to add there? Yeah, Joseph.
Yeah, so I think Ece is right, and you'll probably find that with the slightly more user-friendly website builders such as Squarespace, they're often less customizable when it comes to those kind of more niche changes. So there's probably a way, but it would require some custom code and probably a little bit of development as well. We find, and one of the reasons that we build our websites on top of WordPress is because there's a huge community of people who use it, and there's a way to do everything that we need to do on it.
Right. And sorry, I hadn't realized that you'd answered the question, or I hadn't scrolled down to see that you'd already answered, but thanks for answering that question as well. And Kelly, yes, you're answering Kelly's question. Is that right? Are some website hosting options better than others? For example, Squarespace versus WordPress. I guess the hosting is generally often separate from that. So it's not that we're using platforms like WordPress to build the websites that we build for our clients. Squarespace, I think they host their own websites. I don't know if they use renewable energy. But for us, we might use WordPress, but then we have the hosting is separate from that. And yes, as I said, we always use servers powered by renewable energy. There are other hosting platforms out there. Some of them will do similar things and others won't. Joseph, did you want to add something there?
Yeah, again, I think it ties in, Kelly, with how customizable these things are. As soon as you want to start doing these more complex optimizations to the website, then having a more flexible framework that the website's built on top of certainly enables you to do that a lot easier. So it's hard to say what's better, but certainly whatever option provides the most flexibility, I'd suggest is better.
Right, thank you. Just to remind you that the webinar's coming up. We're about to announce our webinar season for 2027 soon, but in the next 6 months. But next month we've got TikTok for arts and culture. TikTok webinars are always popular. What's working now is the topic there. And then after that, in September, we've got ethical and sustainable marketing with AI. That ties in with the question I just saw above from Sam. And then in October, we've got engaging younger audiences on social media. So the link, Ece has posted the link for the webinars and the sign up. So just scroll up, or we'll post it again in a few moments. Thank you, Ece. And then also do sign up. There's a link there to our newsletter. We send out a monthly newsletter. It's got tips. It's got write-ups from the webinars. It's got various sort of updates. So if these are the sort of topics you're interested in, please sign up to that. I also want to just flag, we're going to do our first live in-person event. We've never done one before. We're going to try it out. So this is a date for your diary. I think you'll certainly get to hear about it if you're on our email list and be able to book when we're ready to do that. But it's how are today's audiences discovering arts and culture? So that will be a panel discussion. So we're pulling together a panel at the moment. It'll also be a networking opportunity. And that's somewhere in London. We haven't got the venue yet, but it's going to be the 14th of October at 9 a.m. So if that's something of interest, do look out for the links. It'll be in our email. I'll try and get it in the email that I send out today. You'll be at least to register your interest, and then it'll be free as well. So yeah, look out for that. So we had a question. We had a question from Sam, and I'm just going up to it. We've got two on AI actually, but Sam's question was, everyone is pushing AI on us, but it's one of the biggest contributors to climate change. I think that you're making a point there rather than asking a question there, I realise. So, but I think it's worth picking up, and maybe we can also, let me just see what the other AI question was. Would a chatbot that feels customer queries actually being more sustainable than multiple emails back and forth all the time. That's interesting as well. So on the topic of AI in general, I think it's very similar to the themes that we have been discussing today. Again, it's all about your priorities and balancing the impact that it has as well, isn't it? So AI is there is a lot of discussion around or awareness of AI being bad for the environment, but AI is probably something that can also solve problems as well. So it's that balancing act. Joseph.
Yeah, and I think it's worth weighing up whether a chatbot is necessary or whether the inquiries that are coming through are predictable enough to be able to just maybe provide a location on the website where you can have an FAQ, frequently asked questions, where you can, you provide those answers already. Chatbots are really good when you maybe you need to figure out kind of where it's difficult to figure out all of your users' inquiries. But for the most part, I think it's often quite predictable. Actually.
Oh, yeah, I think I agree with you both. I think AI is definitely, it's like it's I think just thinking that AI is one of the biggest contributors is definitely in a way true, but also it's a bit like more nuanced, I suppose, when it comes to like how we use it, because I think coming back to how we were talking about like picking images or videos and like how much impact they have on our website, I think it's similar. If you are using AI responsibly, I think, and if it's adding value, then that's different than just using because it's like fashionable, or it's because it's easier, where it's still not adding a value. I think similar to chatbots, like how I think Joseph said, if you are seeing that all the chatbots conversations are just coming up and then in touching in a human for a human, and then maybe there could be a need to review it. But if you see that AI kind of like resolve some things, then maybe that's a different way to look at it. So I think it comes down to or like how Joseph said, like maybe having an FAQ, like more FAQs on the website, or a different solution could be also like considered, I think. So it comes down to, again, I think, evaluating and like prioritizing your needs really and the impact.
And then some people are saying they've already got an FAQ and perhaps people aren't using it. So I think the thing is, when you use AI, you have to provide it the context every single time for every new query, right? So you have to give it all the context of your 700 events a year, Kelly, maybe, and that could be every single inquiry, and that's where it becomes quite inefficient almost. But perhaps it's possible to provide the team with the pre-made responses, and then or you could get an AI to kind of triage the emails that are coming through and summarize them, so that things become slightly more efficient instead.
Yeah, definitely. I think feeding AI with FAQs would help, probably, if people are coming and like contacting you by phone or email with the questions that you have in your FAQ. And if there is more need than that, and if they're reaching out to you, then that's, I think, a different, probably like a solution to think about.
Right. Thank you.
Maybe also worth thinking about optimizing the website and in a way that kind of shows off those FAQs. They're quite often a thing that's shoved to the side and that no one wants to see, you assume, but actually it's quite important.
Thank you. I've got two more questions in the chat box. I'm going to come to Eleanor's first. And on what platforms do we use to calculate your website's carbon footprint? Now, I will just quickly say that Joseph mentioned two. and we're going to share links to those in the follow-up email today. So one of them, was it just 2, Joseph, or was it 3?
So yes, Beacon, EcoGrader, and there's another site called Website Carbon. So yes, we'll provide the links to those, and you'll be able to go and check those out.
Yeah, great, thank you. And then the other one, this I think is a really good question from Carey. Do old images in the back end, not actually showing on the page, have an impact? And if you think about, I described, I did a slide where I talked about how you've got what's on the server, then you've got what's being transferred over the internet to the viewer, and you've got then the viewer's device. If they're sitting in the background, they're not on the viewer's device, so not using energy there. They're not being transferred across the internet, but they are being stored on a server. So I think the answer to that is they are still using. So it is a really good process, and maybe to book it in to do it once a year or 6 months, depending on your setup. But to have that good housekeeping practice where you remove, if you can, some people use them as archives, of course, and that might be the only archive, and that might be the best way to save them. But there might be, you might be having them on the website server itself, you might have them on a local hard drive, and you might feel that you don't need them on the website because you've got the archived ones locally. So absolutely, yes, they do use, they do cause a footprint, and it's good practice to think about how you can reduce them. And sometimes what happens is they get duplicated by different developers, and they get moved around. So you've got several versions of your old images stored in lots of places, which maybe isn't needed. Joseph?
I think the thing to consider as well is, sorry, Carey. The thing to consider as well is if you're using that storage space, then other people might not be able to use that storage space. So what happens is either then your website hosting company has to acquire more storage space because everyone's using space that they don't actually need, or sharing is caring in that respect. So you can get rid of some old files, and then it removes the need to do that. But of course, storage space equates to, it requires electricity to power, and that's kind of how where the carbon emissions are generated from.
Brilliant, thank you, Joseph. And I think that brings us to, sorry, I'm just going to read what Sam has said. I think FAQ pages tend to just answer generic questions like, how do you make an account, and don't deal with the things like if there is a problem. So I tend to need to speak to a person and look for an email address or contact form, though I have heard how much emails can contribute to climate change. But yeah, I think that really does sum up the difference between FAQs, and obviously they're there to answer the frequently asked questions, but you'll always, and I know this from experience, there'll always be situations when you want to actually communicate directly with someone, whether that's by email, on a phone, by a chat box. Joseph?
So yeah, I think you're right, Sam, and this is slightly the problem with it is people will quite often assume that the FAQ is not going to provide them the answer, because they usually are quite generic. You're right. There's some bigger organizations now that try and completely prevent you from contacting support, and they have these huge flows where you put your question in and stuff like that, and it takes you through a whole process, and then maybe if you're lucky you get to speak to someone after. I think those processes are also a good alternative if you balance them right, so you're not making it impossible for people to contact you. But you're making sure that people go through these resources before then creating the email chain, and having that extra impact can be a really efficient way for reducing the carbon footprint, but also helping your team's workload as well.
I think it's like all of these things, they can be done well and they can be done badly. And when they're done well, they can be really effective. And when they're done badly, it causes frustration. I would just add to that. I mean, what we're seeing with FAQs is its importance in AI reading your website. So we talked about this in the webinar 2 months ago, that FAQs is a great way of serving content that AI can understand and serve back up. So if you want to be cited in AI responses, having a website that these platforms can really understand and and process and make sense of, FAQ seems to be a really popular way of doing it. So I don't think FAQs are bad per se. It's how well they're done, and you want to put proper thought about it, but it also serves other purposes as well. I think that brings us to the end of the discussion, and it's certainly the end of our time with you today. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. We've really enjoyed the opportunity to talk about this topic with you, share some thoughts, hear your questions, and we hope you've enjoyed it. And I hope you'll come back to some of our other webinars coming up. But for now, we'll send you an email with the recording later on today. Have a good day.